Shalom, shalom, shalom to everyone watching. This is Rabbi Moshe Otero with the Ways of Israel. We are continuing our series of To Be a Jew, and we are now on chapter 14 in your book, To Be a Jew, page 250. We're going to be looking at Sukkot, which is tabernacle. Sukkot literally means booth or temporary huts. In other words, tabernacle. And this refers to the temporary dwelling places used by the children of Israel in the desert during the 40-year period of their wandering following the Exodus from Egypt. For in booths did I make the children of Israel dwell when I brought them out of the land of Egypt. Leviticus chapter 23, verse 42. The festival that commemorates this period of time in Israel's history is called Sukkot. Its significance, however, is not exhausted by or limited to the historical commemoration. For the underlying spiritual motif of remembering and reenacting the dwelling in temporary huts, remembering is emphasized of the notion of trusting God, bitachon Hashem. Trusting God is basically the main theme throughout this whole entire celebration, and that God's divine protection, bitachon, is of immense importance. With the desert experience, the manna, the water, etc., highlighting this motif, and the festival emphasizes the faith of that somehow God provides for man's need, and that man in turn must be grateful. It symbolizes it by the sukkah, the hut that's built, which is exposed in its insecure roof, into which Jews are hidden to move for the week. Spiritual motif, which was given additional emphasis by the Torah, in that it dates its observance, and which could have been at any time during the year, but it's not tied to a specific historical event. And it was fixed to coincide with the final harvest of the year after the ingathering of the threshing floor and your winepress, as we read in Deuteronomy chapter 16, verse 13, when the spirit of thankfulness and gratefulness to the Lord for providing for the people's need and more naturally forthcoming, reflecting its agricultural significance. The Torah also calls this festival as Hag Hasif, the festival of the ingathering. This was a period of time in which they would ingather all the produce throughout Israel in order to give a maaser and to be thankful for what God has provided. The festival of ingathering, as we read in Exodus chapter 23, verse 16, and chapter 34, verse 22, is observed at the end of the year when you gather in all the results of your work from the field. In the prayer books, the festival is also referred to the season of our rejoicing. In other words, it is Siman Simatenu. It's based on the thrice repeated biblical injunction in conjunction with the festival, and you shall rejoice in your festival. V'samachta b'hagetecha. In other words, it's a time to be happy and religiously celebrating this period of time of great joy for the produce, highlighted by much singing and dancing, which are particularly associated with this holiday. Now, dwelling in the sukkah, in the tabernacle, the Lord spoke to Moses, saying to the children of Israel, on the 15th day of the 7th month there shall be a feast of tabernacles, Hag HaSukkot, Sukkot, to the Lord for 7 days. For the first day shall be a holy convocation, and you shall not do any servile work. On the 8th day you shall observe a holy convocation, as is a day to assemble, or literally atzeret. You shall not do any servile work. Leviticus chapter 23, verse 33 through 36. The first day shall be a day of rest, a Shabbaton. And the 8th day shall be a day of rest, Shabbaton. On the first day you shall take for yourselves fruits of Hadar, from the Hadar tree, citron, the branches of tamarin, palm tree, and bough of avot tree, thick-leaved myrtle, and the arvei nachal, the willow of the brook, and you shall rejoice before the Lord your God for 7 days. So we take these elements, put them together, and it's a time of celebration, of being happy. And you shall observe it as a festival of the Lord for 7 days in the year, an eternal law. In other words, this is not something that someone can come about and just, abrogate it or, put it away, get it done. This is an eternal law throughout the generations. And you shall dwell in the Sukkot for 7 days, that your generation may know that I made the children of Israel to dwell in Sukkot when I brought them out of the land of Egypt. Leviticus chapter 23, verse 39 through 42. The unique feature in this holiday, a festival of Sukkot, is the observance of the precept to dwell, to reside in the Sukkah, in this temporary makeshift hut, as it were. The Sukkah must be temporary, cannot be permanent, and the laws governing its construction enrich our lives as much as possible during the week in lieu of one's permanent home. Even in colder climates, at least all of one's meals are to be taken and be eaten in the Sukkah. What is the blessing? What do we say? We go in there, the blessing one recites when fulfilling this precept is, and it's on page 252. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kedishanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu l'shev b'sukkah. Blessed art thou, Lord our God, King of the universe, who has sanctified us with the commandments and commanded us to dwell in the Sukkah. This blessing is immediately said following the blessing over the bread, whenever one sits down to eat a meal in the Sukkah, this is said as part of the Kiddush of the festival's day. It's not needed to be repeated again, or the blessing over the bread. If one forgets to recite the aforementioned blessings, at the proper time one may recite it in any time during the meal, as long as he has not left the Sukkah. One is not required to eat in the Sukkah that which might be classified as a refreshment or light snack, achilot areim, and not as a regular meal, achilot keva. Eating bread always satisfies a meal, and this is why the eating of bread, and prior to eating the bread, the washing of the hands takes place in the Sukkah. In case of rain or extreme cold, one is excused from going into Sukkah. One is excused from sitting in the Sukkah if he is still ill, if you're still sick. If he's concerned over anxious matter about getting chilled or getting sick, he's also exempt from sitting in the Sukkah. If the person is uncomfortable with the weather or the condition, or he's gotten rained on, or feels that it's not conditioned to be able to enjoy the meal and the blessing, he may also leave the Sukkah. The latter leniency does not apply for the first night of Sukkah or the first 2 nights. You should do everything possible in the first 2 nights, in other words, the first night and the last night Sukkah, to eat in the Sukkah. And the first 2 nights in the diaspora, when the obligation of eating in the Sukkah takes precedence. A traveler on the road, however, is excused from eating in the Sukkah if there is none available. Women are excused from the obligation of eating in the Sukkah, although not required to observe it. They may recite the appropriate benediction if and when they do. Now, in our next video, we're going to take a look at the actual construction of the Sukkah and the 4 species of that's utilized in this particular celebration. So stay tuned. We are continuing the topic of Sukkah, the tabernacle. And by the way, this happens after Yom Kippur, and you'll see it begins to work right following the holiday or the feast of Yom Kippur. We begin building the Sukkah immediately, so that way be ready for the first days of Sukkah. This is Rabbi Moshe Otero. If you have any questions regarding this topic or any other topics that we have covered, please let me know by writing me at rabbiotero@yahoo.com. rabbiotero@yahoo.com.